Angie, and I'm in the kitchen again. I have pears. Sadly, if you remember from last year, I stopped counting at 110 pounds of canning pears. I was canning pears and canning pears. Sadly, this year, either one of two things happened. Either the squirrel that had been eating the pears completely stripped my tree, which I'm starting to lean towards he did not, because I didn't find enough pears on the ground as evidence. The other thought is someone else got to my tree. The house has been there for a very long time, so probably, I don't know how many people have been to the house and know about that tree. We don't have our gate up yet. We need to get that fence and gate up so we can start locking it. Then there would be no way to get there. So, pears were gone all the way. My new fruit picker extends to 20 feet plus my height, which is 5'6". So, and the pears were just gone. I mean, all the way past that, and I couldn't even really see that many way up high in the tree. And that's where the squirrel originally was getting them, was way high up in the tree. But all of them, I mean, the tree was stripped. And so all I ended up getting is basically 2 Home Depot buckets full. That's it. I mean, and I even picked small ones that I would have ordinarily just left on the tree. So that's what I've got this year, and I'm sort of disappointed. I mean, that tree was loaded. Y'all remember the earlier garden videos? The tree was loaded with pears. So I'm really leaning towards somebody got to my tree. My neighbor said he only seen one car over there, and it looked like they had pulled in and were just stopping to check their phone. But you know, so people only can see what they are out and about and see. So it's a good possibility someone got to my tree and stripped it, and it happened one time before, right when we bought the property. So really disappointed, but I'm not going to be ungrateful for what I do have, and I do have 2 full buckets. So this year, since I don't have as many as last year, if you remember, I did the cherry pear sauce, I did strawberry pear sauce, I did cranberry mandarin pears, and I did cinnamon pears. And cinnamon pears are just like the recipe basically for cinnamon apple rings, but they're cinnamon pears, and they taste just like apples, except for they have a little bit of the grittier pear texture. My cat thinks he wants more food, so if you hear him down there. What's wrong? You got something to say? And so I'm going to do cinnamon pears, and then I'm just going to do just plain pears in a syrup. The reason why I'm doing the plain pears in a syrup is because last year, after I did all that stuff with it, I did not do any plain pears. And there were several times where I just wanted to use plain pears like in a cake or a bread, and I didn't have any plain pears. So first what I need to do, and this is going to take me about an hour, so I'm not going to film it, I need to use my apple peeler and core. This is a Pampered Chef one. Lehman sells them, different people sell them. Mine has 2 different arms. I can do a very thin slice, or I can do this medium slice. I always stick with the medium slice no matter what I do, really. It just seems to be, I don't even think I've used the thin slice one. So I'm going to peel and core and chop all my pears, and they're all going to be in like chunks, slices, and I'm going to do like in chunks. I'm not going to do halves or anything like that. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to put them in lemon water. And I have my lemon water. I'm going to use about 1/3 cup of lemon juice per big bowl. And I'm just going to, as I chop and core them, I'll put them in the lemon water. The lemon water keeps them from getting brown. I had somebody question in one of the last year's videos whether or not, why I didn't add lemon juice to my pear recipe. The lemon juice used for pears and apples is usually used, and also peaches, any fruit that browns when it hits the oxygen, oxidization, and turns brown. You want to put in a lemon juice water solution just to keep the browning from happening. You can buy other products that are on the market that do the same thing. I don't know the names because I've never used them, but it's just lemon water keeps the browning from happening. And cutting in corn and slicing, and when I have those, while that's happening, I'm going to get my canners and my kettles just on a low, so they'll start to get to a boiling point. And then when we come back, we will start making the different syrups. I'm not going to show canning the cinnamon pears because I did that last year. So let me get busy on this, and we'll come back when it's time to do the syrup. Okay, I have sliced and basically peeled and cored 10 pounds of pears that we're going to do for just pears in the syrup. Also, if you remember last year from the videos, we decided that the core apple cores sort of work on pears. So they take off most of the peels, but right at the top, you know, it's made for a round apple, and pears are obviously pear-shaped. So the top part doesn't get peeled very well, but that's okay. We're going to chop those up. So I have them sliced and cored. What I have going on here is I have my lid simmering. I have my water bath canner will do 4 jars at a time. And now I have 4 sterilizing. And I'm fixing to cut all these pears up, and then I'm going to be making my syrup and putting them in here. Let me get these cut up, and then we'll get to the syrup. Syrup, we're going to be working with 10 pounds of pears at a time. Doing plain pears, so we're going to start with 5 cups of water, and then we're going to do 3 1/4 cups of sugar. This will make 7 cups of syrup, so I anticipate having to make more. I'm going to stir it up. I'm going to bring this to a boil until it's dissolved for about 5 minutes. Okay, I have the pears. What I ended up doing, they were, you know, sliced in rings from my cores. I just ended up just going down and cutting them in half. So I'm getting it down in the syrup. It's been cooking down for about 5 minutes. I'm going to let it do for another 5 minutes. So this is 10 pounds. It all fit in here after I got it sliced and boiled syrup for 5 minutes by itself. Then I added my pear pieces, and I'm going to let that boil for 5 minutes. And then we're going to take out the jars. As you see, I got the jars boiling right there. And they're just sterilizing. My lids are getting warm, and I'm fixing to take those out. I also have a kettle. Whenever I do water bath canning, I always have a kettle ready with extra hot water in case the water level runs low in here. Alright, I have my sterilized jars out, and I am going to start putting my pears in the jars. I'm using my funnel. I'm using a slotted spoon. I'm going to make sure I leave a 1/2 inch headspace. Use the syrup. This is why I made extra syrup, because we're using the syrup still in the jar here. 1/2 inch. Clean towel. And I'm wiping it down with boiling water. Simmered lid and my ring. Do it fingertip tight. Don't crank it. You want, you know, to be able to a vacuum to form in there. And then I'm going to set it into my canner. Quickly move to the next one. It just gets the air bubbles out of it. You can also run a knife down in there if you want. And what I do when I come back to do my next batch, I'll turn off my pot in between, and when it looks like this batch that's in the canner is about 10 minutes out, I'll start turning on the pot to get it all hot again. that water back in. You want your water to be over your lids. Now, I'm going to have to watch this. I'm going to have to watch my pot because my quartz barely covers my quart, so I'm going to have to keep it filled so that water stays over. You want your water to about ideally 2 inches over the top of your thing, and mine just barely does that. So I'm going to let this boil. If you're doing pints, you're going to process it for 15 minutes. If you're doing quarts like I am, you're going to process it for 20 minutes.